Coming up next on News Channel 13 live at 11, Cohoes police make an arrest tonight in connection with a fire that heavily damaged a popular restaurant.
Also tonight, the future of Albany County's 8% sales tax, our special series on waste and state government, and new restrictions on bungee jumping. News Channel 13 live at 11. Up next.
This is News Channel 13, WNYT, Albany. And now, live for the Capital Region, Ed Dague, Chris Kapostasy, Bob McNamara with sports, and meteorologist Bob Kovachick. This is News Channel 13, live at 11.
Good evening. A Cohoes resident is in the Albany County Jail right now, charged with arson.
Police tell us tonight they believe she set fire to her own apartment building. The fire did heavy damage to Smith's Restaurant in Cohoes, which has served thousands of people over the years. Steve Scoville is live at the restaurant now on Remsen Street with the latest on this arson arrest. Steve.
Ed, the suspect is 44-year-old Lila Jean McCarty. She lives up there on the second floor. The first floor is where the restaurant is. She's been charged with arson, 4th degree. Smith's Restaurant has been a landmark tavern here in Cohoes since back in the 1930s. It was operated by Mike Smith, who became a kingpin in local Democratic politics. The restaurant suffered some heavy damage from the fire. Now an upstairs resident who lives on the second floor has been charged with setting the blaze. She's 44-year-old Lila Jean McCarty. A young neighbor says she's a new acquaintance.
Well, she's new to this neighborhood, and I only knew her for, one day. And
what was she like?
Well, like, I see her on the streets and I say hi, and she'll be cool, and, like, how's school? And, like, she do grown-up stuff with me.
A surprise that she's been arrested for this?
Yeah, very, because I don't think she set the fire.
Ed, Lila Jean McCarty was arraigned before the judge here earlier this evening in Cohoes. She's been sent to Albany County Jail, no bail.
Steve, maybe the most surprising aspect of our report at 6 o'clock tonight was the owner of the restaurant telling Chris Bruno that she thought she'd be serving drinks at the bar tonight. Do you know if she was?
Don't think so, Ed. As you can see behind us, the place is closed up tighter than a drum right now. We can tell you there has been some speculation here as to why this fire was started, why it might have been started by anyone. We understand from neighbors there is rumor that some of the people who live on the second floor have had some arguments, McCarty and her husband, but we don't know for sure.
Uh-huh. Well, we'll find out more as days go on. Thank you. Steve Scoville, live in Cohoes. Chris?
Money is the topic of discussion for Albany County legislators tonight, and if you shop in Albany County, they are talking about your money. Randy Salerno joins us live with results of tonight's sales tax vote. Randy?
Chris, you may remember about 9 months ago when lawmakers here raised the sales tax by 1%. They said they needed the increased revenue to help them out with some financial troubles. They said it was temporary, and they said they'd review it in about a year to see if that revenue increase was still needed. Well, guess what? They want that temporary tax to last for at least another year and a half. The 1% hike makes Albany County's sales tax 8%, one of the highest in the area. When lawmakers enacted it last year, it was supposed to be up for review after 1 year. Now, 3 months before it's set to expire, the Democrat-controlled body wants to sign on for a while longer.
The county needs revenue, and we have to generate revenue. We have not in the past, which I was not a part of, develop a plan whereby we're going to bring about economic development and have alternatives.
Some Republicans proposed cutting the hike in half. Others wanted the temporary tax repealed.
We're going to be repealed. It was going to be repealed through the sunset of this year. They might as well have put tonight that they're passing the tax from now through infinity as opposed to February 25th, 1995, because the possibility of this ever coming off is non-existent.
Now, this proposal also calls for the continuation of the hiring freeze. They'd also like to cut some 200 jobs through attrition by the year 1995. This, though, still will need to be checked off by the state, among others, Chris.
But as you know, County Executive Mike Hoblock has said he will veto this, the extension. So what's the chance of an override?
Well, tonight they had 20 votes in favor. They'll need 26 to override the veto. So, yeah, we may not have seen the last of this. We'll see if some people cross party lines here and push this through.
A whole lot of lobbying will be going on.
Right.
Thank you. Randy Salerno reporting live.
News Channel 13 has learned that a state lawmaker billed taxpayers for part of his flight to Florida for a vacation. Evidence of the flight was unearthed in a lengthy investigation by Phil Bayly, who begins a series tonight called Waste Watchers.
Assemblyman Richard Anderson flew from Albany to a vacation home in Florida in 1991 and billed taxpayers for the $288 for the ticket. When we asked him about it, Anderson said it cost no more than it would have to fly to his home district near Buffalo.
My family and we have a second home in Florida. I did travel to Florida, but the expense that I took was the expense to Buffalo.
It's legal, but Anderson's flight and a similar flight to Florida by another assemblyman have prompted Speaker Saul Weprin to institute tough new travel rules. Anderson's flight was discovered during an eye-opening search of legislative travel and per diem pay. Understandably, one of the lawmakers who lives farthest from Albany gets the highest travel allowance, Senator John Daly from Niagara Falls. But some legislators are paid to travel, well, all the way from here, the Pine Hills in Albany. On top of his salary, Senator Howard Nolan gets $45 a day, $7,600 last year, a lot of it for making the 4-mile trip from his home in Albany. Senator Joe Bruno got $8,000 last year for commuting from his home in suburban Troy. In contrast, Senator Hugh Farley took under $700 for coming in from Niskayuna.
Well, I eat dinner out every night. It's expensive, and nobody's ever criticized me about that.
The Assembly discontinued these daily expenses for local legislators 2 years ago. In fact, 4 Capital Region assemblymen don't claim travel expenses at all: Casal, McEnany, Tedisco, and Tonko. Per diems are all perfectly legal, but critics say the Senate should put them to an end, too.
No receipts are required. In many cases, what has happened is that these per diem checks have amounted to $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 on top of salaries that already are high from a perspective of full-time salaries, let alone a job that only requires them to be in work for 65 to 70 days.
Phil Bayly, News Channel 13.
If you see state spending that makes you wonder, we'd like to wonder along with you. We'd like to know. We're setting up the Waistline. Call 1-800-765-0013. Tomorrow we'll look at how much our elected representatives are really making.
In Money Matters tonight, consumers are pulling out the plastic and charging purchases at an ever-increasing rate. The Federal Reserve tallied up another $3 billion for consumer time payment plans last month. That means credit card debt for March rose at an annual rate of 9%, on top of February's gain of 14%. Analysts warn that personal incomes are not keeping up with consumer borrowing.
President Clinton is in Chicago tonight trying to restore some support for his economic program. The President told reporters that with the help of Illinois Congressman Dan Rostenkowski, he expects Congress to pass his budget request pretty much intact. In a series of appearances in Cleveland, the President said the costs of doing nothing about the economy are very, very high. Meanwhile, the White House has declared its Bosnia policy in a holding period. Mr. Clinton will call Allied leaders this week to discuss Bosnia. But they have indicated that no decision will be made before a weekend referendum by the Bosnian Serbs.
Now let's head over to the Weather Center and Bob Kovachick.
Chris and Ed, I have the H word in the forecast.